Our direct action as a country of challenging Israel's war in Gaza has caused significant displeasure among the friends of Israel. The case that we brought to the International Court of Justice has caused, as you might imagine, great nervousness that other leaders may be found complicit in genocide and may themselves be summoned by the International Court of Justice. Because if you are complicit in genocide, you have to face the court as well. I don't know whether you would like to be told by the United States of America who your friends should be, what your policy should be, or how you conduct your affairs. I prefer a different country. Our Constitution drew on our Freedom Charter as a source for democratic human rights. This is why in our Constitution you will find that equality, the rights to privacy, and the rights to development feature so prominently. In addition to these rights, our national policies are also built on our foundational Constitution. We today are confronted as South Africa by active threats to our sovereign right to implement our freely determined foreign policy. The most powerful country in the world is angered at South Africa's insistence that foreign policy should be guided by national interest, certainly, but national interest conjoined with progressive human rights values and principles. The Freedom Charter that was adopted by the Congress of the People in 1955 included very progressive and forward-looking clauses on the subject of international relations. Our policy focus is that all nations should seek to achieve and promote cooperation through peaceful means and not coercion. We have upheld this policy in our peacemaking role in Burundi, in support for Democratic Republic of Congo negotiations for peace, and in the assistance to negotiations that we gave to Ethiopia's federal government in its negotiations with the administration of Tigray, following the conflict that broke out between the federal government of Ethiopia and the administration of Tigray. You all know that we are living in a very testing time geopolitically. Many analysts suggest this is a very toxic set of crises, making foreign relations a deeply stressed domain. Contributors to a recent Mapungubwe Institute publication titled Africa and the World suggest that the unipolar dominance of the past 40 years is being disrupted by a crude, more vicious geo-economic dominance. The intention, they assert, is to enforce compliance on vulnerable states to the dictates of United States foreign policy preferences. And this results from the world striving increasingly to create multipolarity. And so those who have enjoyed a very powerful role in influencing others to adopt their policy direction, when they see a shift away from a unipolarity, they become extremely vicious in response. And this is part of what South Africa is experiencing today. we as South Africa have generally pursued an independent foreign policy unencumbered by the preferences of other countries. In the past decade, we have seen a growing impatience toward South Africa's independence in foreign relations. This has stretched from concern at our trade relations with China, which is now our largest trading partner, to concern about South Africa's solidarity with Cuba and with Palestine and their struggle for freedom. Our direct action as a country of challenging Israel's war in Gaza has caused significant displeasure among the friends of Israel. South Africa's use of international law and its well-argued representation on the matter of genocide are outstanding examples of leadership and courage in today's difficult environment, an outstanding illustration of a country holding on to the highest set of values and principles which dictate that human rights apply to all and not to some. This is our country's belief, and I hope you as the young people share that belief and will continue to uphold it. The case that we brought to the International Court of Justice has caused, as you might imagine, great nervousness that other leaders may be found complicit in genocide and may themselves be summoned by the International Court of Justice. Because if you are complicit in genocide, you have to face the court as well. The United States of America targeting of aid to South Africa and action against our ambassador illustrates the distress caused by South Africa's principled stand. Our country has shown leadership in encouraging peaceful resolution of the Middle East crisis and in challenging the impunity enjoyed by Israel for over 70 years. It is interesting when we observe concern about Israel, it is often from the most powerful in the West, a claim that Israel has a right to defend itself. There's very little reference to the fact that the Palestinian people's territory is occupied and that they do not enjoy the human rights that we dearly love. So it's vital whenever we look at an issue that you look at the full facts that are associated with an international issue of concern and of human rights. We haven't neglected in the course of all these events our national interest. We have pursued our national interests through successful levels, through trade agreements, through our membership and benefits for our workers and businesses, through AGOA, and through trade that we've developed increasingly with new trade partners such as China and East Asia. Some commentators attempt to create an impression that South Africa's government is only pursuing the interests of those who are oppressed elsewhere, and that it is not looking to the national interests of South Africa. If you read reports on our trade in the last 30 years, you would realize we occupy a very different space economically from where we were in 1994. So it is absolutely untrue that national interest doesn't matter. But it is also a fallacy to believe that you should neglect human rights of others or even your own solely for pursuing national interest. That places you in a hazardous road of breach of human rights, which we would not like to be part of. So leadership, if you are South Africa, is not easy. I don't know whether you would like to be told by the United States of America who your friends should be, what your policy should be, or how you conduct your affairs. I prefer a different country.
I do not know if the students do still play a very popular card game called Claverias. If you do play Claverias, you will know what it means to have the trumps in your hand, and excuse the pun. I believe that as South Africa, we do hold a number of trumps. First of all, we have excellent access to BRICS and new markets. I also believe that we control minerals critical to the USA's economy. We also have the ability to control important trade routes, and therefore we can impact on their value chains and the distribution of their goods. Question, both to Professor Pandor and also to Mr. Biko. Should we not call out Trump? Should we not call his bluff, as what President Traore and others have done? Should we not actively promote the de-dollarization? Trump has kicked us, and now he wants to decide how we must respond. Possibly, in the words of Biko, self-mitigation through self-reliance is what we should be striving for. Thank you.
Well, on the question of government appeasing the United States, I think all evidence indicates the opposite. The government has thus far stood their ground on issues of principle, and I think it's important that we support them in that regard. I haven't heard Mr. Trump on self-reliance. What I hear him saying is America should be great again, which means more exploitation of others rather than building a better world. If we were promoting self-reliance, we would see more wealthy countries investing in positive goals and programs, such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which require significant funding. If there was promotion of self-reliance, we wouldn't be denying AIDS and HIV infected persons no access to proper treatment, and thus assigning a death sentence to them. That is not self-reliance. It's selfishness, it's murder, and it's a real tragedy for many countries on the African continent. On the subject of leadership, I agree. I believe we need improved leadership. I think we need leadership of integrity, we need honesty, and we need competence. I sometimes marvel at the people that we choose and the ones we discard. So I do think, yes, indeed. But the people of South Africa have made a very important statement in the last election. They've given a warning that if you don't improve, we can deal with you. Our vote means something. So I think leaders do stand challenged now to begin to address transformative change in real terms if they have the aspiration to remain in leadership. Well, I think the matter of the binary attitude and practice of access to both international law and international humanitarian law is something that we must address in multilateral fora. I think we should do it by building stronger solidarity campaigns through our organizations, through BRICS, through ASEAN, through a stronger South, an emboldened South, a South that speaks up, a South that says, I am different, I'm progressive, I'm prepared to take a stand. And so I welcome the step taken by President Ramaphosa a few weeks ago to lead in the establishment of what is called the Hague Group, presidents of different countries who have attached their names to being consistent in support for international law. And we need that kind of progressive leadership and the readiness to stand up and be counted. You can't change things if you stand in a corner. You need to be visible, to be available, and to be active. We also must, I believe, address the reform of the United Nations. It's urgently necessary. The United Nations Charter was drafted in 1948, and it was drafted at a time when we were mainly colonized as the African continent. And thus we were not figured into the character of the Charter. And there are elements that really work against us as nations of the South. So I think we now need to accelerate the processes for concrete action on reform of the United Nations. That will assist us. But we also must consistently point out to the powerful of the world that their exercise of international law and international law instruments reflects very deeply double standards. We shouldn't be afraid to say it. A journalist asking me a question in an interview in the UK said to me, you always speak about support and solidarity for the Palestinian people. And he said, and yet, you know, we as Germans, many of us supported South Africa in the struggle against apartheid as civil society formations. Why are you not supportive of the people of Ukraine? I said, no, I'm not against the people of Ukraine, but I don't see anybody giving arms to the people of Palestine. And you, although you supported our struggle, you didn't give us arms. So you practice a double standard, depending on color, on geography, on status. We believe all oppression must be addressed by each one of us in the world. And so in conclusion, I agree with the gentleman in the green t-shirt that indeed we must use our advantages, a stronger BRICS, a beneficiation of our minerals, which this province can play a very important role in, greater use of science, and particularly big data science because of SKA being in this province. This province should mark itself as a digital province because of the science capacity located here. That should be the key focus of this institution, that we look at digital skills, we look at science, we look at research, we look at computation, because this is the value that we have. And then, of course, mining, critically important, and manufacturing and industrial capacity with respect to minerals that are found in this province. And of course, ASEAN, huge population, great opportunity for increased trade. We've just 2 years ago become a dialogue partner of ASEAN, first African country to be admitted. And our business people just concluded an excellent trade deal with ASEAN countries of halal beef. So again, we have an industry, halal, that can make us internationally competitive, and we must use it as South Africans. On the de-dollarization, I think we should exercise good caution there. because you don't want to take a radical step and then find that in terms of sudden falls on debt repayments or drop in bond value and so on, you've harmed your economy. So this is why we are proceeding on the basis of investigating use of own currency for international trade. We don't use this term de-dollarization. You won't hear it from us at least, because we know that we want to move in a manner that will allow us to continue to have some control of our economy and not find ourselves landed with very deep demands that will cost huge resources from our public revenue. So that's
South Africa condemns Israel's military actions in Gaza, considering them violations of international law. The country has taken Israel to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, accusing it of genocide. South Africa argues that Israel's actions breach the Geneva Conventions and calls for immediate intervention to protect Palestinian civilians. The case at the ICJ is a significant step in international law, seeking accountability for alleged war crimes. The US, UK, and some European nations criticize South Africa's stance, while others support its legal efforts. South Africa's move strengthens its leadership role in the global South, influencing other nations to take similar actions. South Africa draws a parallel between its apartheid past and Israel's treatment of Palestinians, shaping its pro-Palestinian foreign policy. South Africa's legal action against Israel highlights its commitment to human rights and international law. While the move has led to diplomatic tensions, it reinforces the country's position as a leader in global justice efforts. The outcome of the ICJ case could set a precedent for future accountability in conflicts, shaping international responses to human rights violations. Thank you for watching Daily Logos. Comment and subscribe.